What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about why I am getting Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, a game that I've been very excited for, but I gotta be real, my hype for this game has actually gone through the roof at this point, but it continues to grow every day, and it actually continues to grow exponentially since I replayed the first game and did a video on it actually on my third channel. I'll link that at the end of this video and in the comments below. But my excitement since then has been pretty darn high. So what we do here for these kind of videos is we talk about an upcoming game. I talk about whether I'm getting it, not getting it, or I'm somewhere in between. And, you know, as I just said, this is a game that I've marked down from the beginning, right? For many years, actually. But really going into 2024, I talked a lot about this game, I would say, towards the tail end of 2023. And I gotta be real, I stopped talking about it as much, but I never, lost the belief that this game really can be a Game of the Year contender. I've always thought that. I've just kind of, shut up about it, I guess, which is one of the only things I guess I've shut up about in my entire life. Now, as we get closer and closer, I get more and more excited. And as I said, and I do want to lean on this, it's not necessarily to plug the video that I did, but I replayed the first game. Actually, from when I'm recording this video, I replayed it about a week and a half ago. The first game is so good, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I will not tolerate the slander that I've seen all of a sudden on Hellblade online. Is it a game for everybody? No. Is it a game? Okay, well, then you get into the debate, walking sim and all this stuff. Look, I think Hellblade 1 is more than a walking sim, okay? And you can go into depth in it, and actually, like I said, I made a whole video, and actually that was a big part of that video, is we walked through the gameplay elements of that game, okay? When it comes to the second game, I think a lot of the discourse online is because of the switching hands for console exclusivity, right? You have Ninja Theory now being on Xbox's side, quote unquote, right? You have them making this game exclusive for them, whereas Hellblade originally, right, was exclusive for PlayStation. So, look, again, is it for everybody, or is it going to be a perfect game? Probably not. And is it for everybody? Absolutely not, right? But I do think a lot of the infighting on social media is because of the console stuff and not necessarily the game itself. Because from what we've seen of this game, I think the game looks phenomenal. There's really, to me, there's only one issue, and then there's issues that I would say I've seen from other people online. I want to kind of tackle them. The one issue for me is actually the preservation side of things. It's being digital only. Not a fan. And I would say this for any game. I said this for Alan Wake. I said this for The Man Who Erased His Name, like a Dragon. This is not good. It's absolutely not good. This is a game that I wonder if it's going to go under people's radar. You look at the first game, and the first game, performed well, but again, you're not talking about a game that's absolutely massive. You're not talking about a game that's selling 10 million, even 5, 6, 7, 8 million, right? Now it goes to Xbox. Now it's on Game Pass, and I wonder how much that's going to help it. I imagine it would help it quite well, especially if word of mouth picks up, right? Because if this game is a Game of the Year contender, I think Game Pass can kind of take it from there. But the digital-only thing does tick me off. As I keep mentioning the third channel, it's about older games. I've gone way more into preservation in the last 2 or so years. I've bought hundreds, it's actually too many, with way too much money, of old games in the last little while. So I really do care, and I'm trying to put my money where my mouth is when it comes to these issues. So I'm just not a fan. The other stuff I've seen, well, it does go back to, again, that discourse of the game. Is it a game? Is it going to be too much of a walking sim? And one thing I've seen that kind of came up after the most recent time that they kind of came out and talked about it quite a bit is the length. So they actually talked about the length of this game being very similar to the first game, and I saw a lot of people freak out about that. Now, to throw my 2 cents in, I will say one thing in terms of maybe a negative or more of just okay, I kind of want to get to the bottom of this. I am not understanding how it took them 7, 8 years to make this game, and it's the same length as the first game. And I think that's not even necessarily to them or entirely to them. I think that's a game industry problem. Games should not take 6 to 8 years. I think we need to get that under control, or the AAA space is really in deep trouble, okay? So it's more of an industry-wide issue, but it does apply here. Is it really, did you really need to take this long for the game to be potentially 6 to 8 hours? Now, I am completely fine with the game being, in fact, I relish games being 6 to 8 hours long, okay? I really want more games, actually, not all, but more games to be that length, okay? But yeah, it is a fair point. It's like a year of development for every hour. That's a little weird, okay? Beyond that, and honestly, again, like for me, the length is not an issue literally at all, okay? But I have seen that, I guess, online. Beyond that, I am sold every way you can possibly imagine. The game looks, and I would start with visuals, although visuals aren't everything, but I will say, again, upon replaying the first game, what they're able to capture with Senua, like herself, her facial animations, or, her expressions, right, is unlike almost anything in any other game. But there are scenes that are not afraid to get, I guess, uncomfortable, if that makes sense, right? Where she's screaming, she's crying, she's in agony, and it's not always physical agony. In fact, that's kind of the whole point, right? It's up here. I'm pointing at my head. You guys can't see, but it's up in her mind. And it's a serious matter, right? But those scenes, I think, are captured so well in a game that's 7 years old. That is nuts. That's absolutely, and I didn't think that the first game would still hold up in the visual department right now, I guess, and oh my dear God, absolutely did. So to think that they've been working so long with all this new technology, how good this next game is going to be. And again, is visuals everything? No. But for a game like this, the visuals I do think are more important than other games because you're going to have to be expressive, right? And it's really going to be on her. It's really going to be on the acting. It's really going to be on the camera work. I mean, it is that type of game. So it's not the only part of this game, but it's a big part. And I kind of want to just start there. When it comes to the gameplay, now they've talked a little bit about the forward momentum, if you want to call it that, of the gameplay, of the combat, I would say specifically. Now, I got to be real. I did not hate the gameplay at all in the first game. I remember not hating it, and upon replaying it, I can confirm I still don't hate it. Is it amazing? No. It's a very simplified, when you look at symbols, you're trying to find them, manipulate the world to find symbols and whatnot. Is it pushing any boundaries there? No. Is it pushing boundaries combat-wise? No. I would actually say the combat's kind of satisfying, more satisfying than you think it is in the first game. And this game, especially the combat, like they definitely, I think, took some steps in a positive direction. Is it going to be like the most gameplay-heavy game of all time? No. And this is, I think, where it does kind of get awkward, right? Or where the internet kind of just has its way with it. Because, you're going to have these discussions. Look, I think a game can be like this. I think a game can be more reliant on the acting. I think it can be more reliant on the lore and the deep storytelling that they do. And I mean, I don't even want to get, I don't even know too much about the story, and I don't even think they've talked too much about the story of this upcoming game. I can talk about the story of the last game and talk about how I think they did an incredible job of telling a personal tale that also talks about mental conditions. In fact, that's like the entire point of the story of the first. Well, okay, maybe not the entire point. There's a lot of acceptance. That's a huge theme, right, in the first game. But it's also a lot of confusion because Senua, she's getting things kind of mixed up. She's choosing to forget some things, and then she's remembering. She's kind of coming to. So it is a complex. That's probably the best word. It took me 9 minutes to figure it out. It's a complex game in terms of storytelling, in terms of narrative, in terms of, whatever you want to say, right? Like the writing is kind of complex. The dialogue is kind of complex. I like it. And again, does that work for every game? Do I want every game to be that? No, I do not. It's actually kind of why, though, I'm so excited for this game, right? Because very few games, I think, are going to do what this game, even the first game did, or what this game is going to do. I feel like very few games can actually do it. And again, not every game needs to do it, but this is a good kind of like break in the schedule. You've had so many games come out so far, and we really were in a lot of like JRPGs. You know what I mean? Like we got Dragon's Dogma and Infinite Wealth and Persona and Final Fantasy. And I mean, these games are long, and a lot of them are actually very, very awesome. But again, to have a game that's just very, very different, I really appreciate it. And again, like I'm just a big fan of the first game. I loved it when it came out. I wanted to replay it, like to see if I still loved it. And I gotta be real, I love it more. Like I love that first game more than I did 7 years ago. And it's not clickbait. It's not like, oh, well, I gotta hype up the first game because the second game's coming. No, I was willing to say like, maybe the first game's not as good as I remember it being. Nope. Like I think the first game is better than I remember it being. And even if it is and I don't need it, like it cannot be a retread. Cannot be the exact same game 7 years later with like next to no improvements. But like I don't think that's gonna happen. You know what I mean? I feel like it's gonna do what the first game did in a lot of departments and then elevate it, right? Like this, it's going to tell a different story, like the next chapter basically in her life. You're going to have new locations. The combat is going to be improved. Is it going to be the best combat in the world? Absolutely not. But is it going to be better than the first game? Yeah. And you know what? Again, I kind of like the first game's combat. I'm not going to pretend like it was amazing, but I think it was actually quite satisfying to play. And actually, I made it this far without even talking about my favorite feature in the first game, which I cannot wait for the second game, is the audio. Her voices in her head speaking to her, which, by the way, I'm very interested to see like how they bring that out again, because if you know the ending to the first game, it's just, without spoiling it, it's going to be interesting to see what they do in the beginning of this game to kind of set it up. But you could talk about the advancements of technology. The way they record the lines now is actually much improved than when they did it back, in the first game. But just to put on those headphones, which I rarely use headphones, okay, which I should definitely use them more, but to put on those headphones and to hear the voices bouncing, and that was a huge feature in the first game, right? They would be really in your ear, then they'd pull back, then it would bounce from your right ear to your left ear, then your left ear to your right ear. It is so unlike anything, and it's because of the mental condition, right? Which again it's a very serious topic, and they did a great job of like going on that line where it is serious. You're actually building a story around it, but you're making it something that's kind of intriguing, like in a weird way, right? Where it's like, I like the voices telling her, don't open that door, don't do it, or like mocking her at times, right? Or telling her, hey, go up that ladder, you just walked by the ladder, get up there. There's a lot of cool mechanics that they actually built in the game from the voices, plus the complex kind of narrative, right? So I'm very excited to that part. I will say, even if that is just exactly the same as the first game, I'm fine. Like that was an elite part of the first game, and if you made no improvements and you just kind of added to it, I'd actually be fine with that. But I'm sure there will be, added improvements. So yeah, I don't know. Talking to myself, obviously I'm talking to you guys, but like speaking into a microphone, talking about it as long as I have in this video, I've done it. I've made myself even more excited, than I was before I made the video. So I'll be covering it all the way up till launch. When the game comes out, I'll be playing it, and we'll have loads of videos on this game. Okay, we're gonna dedicate May to basically Hellblade 2. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.